Alright, so first what you guys are going to do is go ahead and make a box on your paper. It's actually going to be a rectangle. Probably about 5 inches would be ideal for doing the cross hatching and for doing the smudging, which is the first two that we're going to do. So you can see here I just use my ruler. If you don't have a ruler, that's totally fine. You can just eyeball an inch mark. That would be best if you could at least do 1 inch boxes. And then now we're going to start with the cross hatching. So first I'm just going to start doing it one way. I started with the darkest side and then I'm working my way to the lightest side. As you can see, I'm only doing my pen strokes one way right now, just so I can kind of get a feel of what type of value I'm putting onto the paper. And then now I'm going to go the other way so it creates the actual cross hatching effect, which is the lines crossing across each other to make squares. So again, I'm just continuing this throughout. As I finish up, I kind of see a couple of problem areas where maybe I didn't make it through the whole rectangle, or it needs to be a little darker in areas. So I'm just going back over those just to kind of make my value scale a little bit better. So that was with pen. So if you have a Sharpie, I would actually recommend doing the cross hatching and the stippling with the Sharpie just because it's a little easier to see. You also won't spend as much time filling in the darker areas as well, which can be a little bit time consuming. Not that it's bad to do with pen. You totally can do it with pen or pencil. But if you have a Sharpie, I would highly recommend it. And I'm just showing you the difference between the pen and the Sharpie right here. So next we're going to do the smudging. You're going to start in the middle. You want to just go over the middle square as lightly as you can with your pencil. So you're not putting any pressure on the page, but you're also making sure that the pencil is making contact with the paper. And you're just going to fill in the whole square like this. If you notice, there's also a way you can do this. If you do it completely horizontally, you can fill in the whole square in one single stroke. I kind of overlapped a little bit, so it's going to create a little deformity in my square, but that's okay. Now I'm going to go to the darker square. So this one I sped up because it's really dark, so you want to press the pencil as hard as you can. Then you're going to move on to the next square, and this one's going to be pushing a little hard, but not as hard as the darkest square. And now I'm just rubbing my finger over because we're doing smudging. So you can totally just use a pencil with smudging. It's ideal to use charcoal. So if you do have charcoal, that's awesome. I'm doing this in pencil so you can see the effect with pencil, since most of you probably do have pencil. Now I'm going to go to the square after my middle tone. And I'm just going to put a light hue over it because if you notice when I did the smudging, it did put some of the pencil hue on it already. So I'm just going to make it slightly darker. And as you can see, I can still put a little bit more work into my value scale, so I'm going to touch up some areas to make a little darker. Now you can kind of see those tones are separated a little bit more, so I'm going to go back over with my finger to smudge it out. And that looks a lot better. Okay, now for stippling. So for stippling, like I said, you do not need to do 1 inch squares. It's going to be taking you a really long time because stippling is just doing a ton of dots. So I just did 1/2 inch squares for the stippling, and I'm starting with the middle square, just kind of filling it up, but not having the dots too close together. Then I'm going to the next lighter square, and almost filling it, but not as much as the middle one. And then finally the lightest. And keep in mind we can add to these, which is what I'm going to do. So just keep watching. Now you can see I'm doing the darker ones, which I sped up again because doing the darker squares takes a little bit longer with the stippling. Again, because you're just doing a ton of dots. So now that I've done the darkest square, I'm going to go back through all the dots I've already created and kind of render it a little bit better. Add some dots in areas just to kind of make it more of a gradient. And again, if you do have a Sharpie, I would recommend doing the stippling with Sharpie, just like the cross hatching. And here's the difference between the pen and the Sharpie for the stippling. It will be a little quicker to do with the Sharpie since the Sharpie tip point is a little thicker than a pen.